Welcome back to the Slanted Attic Experience. Today, it's episode 28, and we're diving into a jam-packed conversation with two sharp, well-rounded guests, Graham and Dylan, covering everything from politics and economics to football, sports science, and personal growth. First up, we have Graham, a diehard Duke and Virginia Tech fan who grew up in the heart of Tobacco Road, where college sports reign supreme. While he keeps up with professional sports in the U.S., his true passion is the English Premier League, where he supports Brighton and Hove Albion. Joining us as well is Dylan, a soon-to-be computer science graduate with plans to tackle an MBA next. With a strong interest in consulting and product management, Dylan also prioritizes health and wellness, spends time on the golf course and chessboard, and never misses the chance to photograph wildlife or explore new music. And when it comes to football, he is all in on Alabama and the Detroit Lions. What's on the agenda today? U.S. presidential debates, political cycles, and the real cost of war, U.S. spending, fiat currency, and economic concerns, Steelers rants, NFL defensive coverages, and evolving coaching trends, steroids, alternative medicine, and the controversial enhanced games, Jokic, NBA player body composition, and the science of performance, private equity in pro sports, and the financial side of the NFL, player safety, the hip drop tackle, and the evolution of contracts, building a winning culture, the importance of O-lines and running backs in today's NFL, instant gratification, lifelong learning, and why doing hard things makes life easier. This episode is all about breaking down big topics and challenging conventional thinking, from the state of American politics to the future of sports and personal growth. You don't want to miss it. Let's dive right in. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Slanted Attic Experience. Today, we're delighted to welcome back two of my most favorite guests. You know, they're on here frequently. Dylan's episodes, honestly, haven't released yet at the time of this filming, which is in mid to late September, but they're coming in on the way, and I've known both these guys for quite a long time, so I'm excited to dive into some interesting topics. So we're going to get started with chatting about the presidential debate that happened last week. So we were chatting about the immigration crises, as one side calls it, and I guess so does the other. So we're bringing up a lot of interesting points when it comes to that. So I don't know, man. Super interesting landscape. Very two very differing opinions on it, but also the same. I don't know. They seem to both talk around the subject, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like I don't think either person during the whole entire debate ever actually answered a question straight on, which is pretty typical for politics nowadays. But I remember the first question, that got asked to Kamala Harris. It was like I don't even remember the question, but it was like they asked her the question, and she just started talking about like her family and like the past and like completely different topic, and then tried to bring it like back. But it's like, why can't you just answer the question? I just get frustrated when like you expect certain things from like your politicians based on like what we've learned in school, and then you grow up and you realize like, oh, none of this is actually the case. Like it's a very, I don't know, it's very different, I would say, to what I thought it was when I was growing up.
The problem is that each of those politicians, they have about 15 to 20, like 30-second sound bites that they have memorized. And Trump has less.
Yeah.
Kamala definitely has more.
Yeah.
But the issue is that basically any question you could ask, you can spin it into one of those 15 or 20 sound bites. So that's exactly what happened. Anytime you bring up literally anything to Trump, he's going to talk about illegal immigration. He's going to say that he's going to try to make the point that if we fix illegal immigration, then we can fix the money. Then the money is going to fix the roads, and the roads are going to help people get to the hospital better, and that's going to help the health of the country. So you ask him about the health of the country, and he goes, well, illegal immigration, you know? So they each just have these kind of sound bites in their head that they can spin to literally any question they get, and then it leads to them just not answering the question.
Yep. Have either of you seen? I believe it was a know what page posted it on Instagram, but it was like a list of both of their goals or their ambitions once they get into office. And reading both of those lists made me want to fucking vomit, dude. I was like, you really think like all of these things are achievable? If so, great. Some of them are, and we want to create a better society. But how are we going to install these plans? There's no course of action. It's only a plan of action, right? There's all these talking points, but then, nothing ever gets done. It's just filling the pockets of people that are, in with the lobbyists or big pharma and shit like that. And it's been growing ever evident, in the last couple of years because we have access to technology that tells us that these people are doing those things. How do we solve that problem? I don't know if either candidate presents a solution. It might have to wait till the next presidential election, but it's something that we all need to think about. You know, it's like, are either of
Well,
these two people really who we want?
No,
yeah.
no,
Well,
they're not.
the big internet deal that they did, the $45 billion trying to get internet to every citizen in the country,
Yeah.
that hasn't even started. You know what I mean? Like that's just such a big plan, such a big allocation of money that hasn't even started. There's not a single person that has better internet since that deal was signed. Um, and also the other thing too is that you can look side to side on what they're both going to do or what they're going to try to do. But the second that Trump wins, let's say he wins, the Democrat's going to win the next election.
Right.
If Kamala wins, then some old school conservative is going to win the next election, right? So they're just going to counteract each other. They're whatever she does, the next person's going to get rid of. Whatever he does, the next person's going to get rid of. And that's part of the reason why, like, for example, the like abortion argument. I don't know if you all want to talk about this very much, but that's the reason why it's crazy to me because no matter what happens, the other side's just gonna change.
Yeah,
You know, say they do have restrictive abortion policies federally. The next administration is just gonna sign an executive order giving rights back. You know?
Like state rights or something like that. Because I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
the point that Trump was trying to make in that court decision, he kept talking about. I don't know if any of what he said about it was exactly correct, but I think the point that he was trying to make was that it's more down to state rights now. But like, how does that constrict the availability of that to people that need it? Maybe that's a topic of discussion for another day. But like, exactly to your point, he installed a new Supreme Court justice. So now, if the Democratic organization takes over, they can sign an executive order, like you said, or install some form of legislation that allows states, more apt rights for treating people that are out of state, or like, more availability to the people within their state. So unfortunate as it is, it'll play itself out and eventually work itself out, as will pretty much every other issue to come back to the median.
right. Well, and I just think the whole idea of states' rights is kind of just a cover. I think it's more so they just, they're trying to push getting rid of abortion and just creating more chaos and division. And I just think it's both sides doing it because they know that's what gets people drawn in is the extreme. So if you can paint the other side as the extreme and you're more of like the more moderate, reasonable side, then people are going to side with you. But then it it's like you're like two different sides are receiving two different, you know, pieces of information. It's like nobody's actually getting the full story. And unless you like actually want to do it yourself and like, go through that stuff and look at it yourself, you're not going to really know. And all you're going to hear is like one side or the other side, like he said, she said type thing. It's never, and I feel like, abortion's a great example with this. I feel like gun control and other things like that are also examples. And I just think that part of the issue that I have is that, okay, yes, these are important issues and we should come to compromises with them, but are they really the most important issues?
Right.
Like, I think there are other things that are like more important that should be dealt with at the top of the list instead of arguing about these things that in reality, like, yes, they affect people's daily lives, but it's on a much smaller scale than things like, for example, the the Federal Reserve, or
Yep.
just continually like printing money and having skyrocketed inflation. The fact that we have taxes, and it seems like everything we do is taxed. You not only get taxed, you get Social Security taken out, but now Social Security is running out. So by the time we get to 65, we're probably not even going to get any money for Social Security. So it's like
Yep.
there are so many issues that we, as especially as young Americans, because I mean, no offense, but if you're older than the age of 65, like, you should be retired. Like, I'm not saying that should be a requirement, but like, you should retire at 65. Maybe if you want to go to 70, if you're like a, college football head coach and you love coaching and you just want to stay in it or whatnot. But like, no politician pat should be, older than 65 or 70 years old,
I think
because
public office. I don't know if I
any
disagree with the entire retirement thing. I think people should be able to enjoy their
no,
passions
I
for
I
past
I agree,
65.
I agree. I'm not saying
But
that
politics
I'm
or
not
public
saying
office,
to
not a
make it a requirement for, like, everyone, because I feel
right.
like there are people that do enjoy work, but for that specific for
Yeah.
politics, like, you need to make an age limit because, also too, like, I don't want old people running my country. Old people aren't gonna be living in this country in 50 years. They're gonna be dead. We're gonna be the ones that are gonna be living in this country for the next 40, 50 years. We're the ones that are gonna have to deal with the consequences of their policies, of what they're implementing. So, I just think that personally, like, young people need to understand more that it shouldn't be about left versus right. Who's right, who's wrong, that's irrelevant to me. It's about, finding where we have common ground and really like emphasizing that. Like, we all don't like the fact that we get taxed out of the ass for everything. We don't like the fact that inflation has made it so that rents are crazy high and we don't know, a lot of people don't know what to do. It's and so it's just like it's making it harder and harder to not see that stuff now. So I feel like a lot more people are starting to see that and like realize we need to do something about it and we can't just be arguing about the same issues over and over again. Sorry, I know that
Yeah,
was a
the
lot. I
problem
kind of went on a
the
rant
the
there.
the problem with finding common ground is that 95% of all media when it comes to the divide is on those issues that you talked about, like abortion or gun control or things like that. Those things that are so have kind of forced us to diverge into one side or the other. Like if it was 20 years ago, the average person would have been a lot closer when it comes to gun control, or another issue like that. But the problem though is that it's so easy to just put out media that talks about it because everybody understands it.
Yep.
No matter
Right.
what your IQ level is or your education, you understand what guns are. You know,
Yep.
um, and then it's so easy just to push somebody to one side or the other. What doesn't make sense to me is how most Trump supporters and most Kamala supporters, they think the exact same way, you know,
Yep.
about those issues. It's like they've heard the sound bites and they've made that their ideology. You can't tell me that if we just ask these people to their core, that they just happen to have the exact same ideas on everything, you know. But they hear their favorite politicians speak, and we as humans are easily influenced. And the
Yep.
next thing you know, you have 50% of the country that completely disagrees with the other 50% on the majority of the issues.
Yep. Yep. We're tribal people, man. We want to belong to one of those sides.
Hmm.
We want to belong with an ideology or a, some sort of cultural ideology, I guess is the best word for that. Whether it be religion or politics or sports, or there's so many things that people like to belong to, right? And I think that's the largest factor in those people wanting to side with one side or the other. And you can't forget that. I don't know what the statistics are, but I know I brought it up in previous podcasts. But it's something like 47% of Americans can't read or aren't literate past like a sixth grade reading level. Some people
Mhm.
aren't literate at all. They just believe in what's in front of them on the television. Specifically, I don't want to call out older people, but that's the age of media, the age of television. What they've been growing up with has been what, fucking 4 channels, and then became 8, and then it became 15. How long of a time period did they only have access to one media source, one voice that was telling them what to think, right? How the war was going in Vietnam or whatever back in the, what was that, 80s, maybe 70s? I don't know. I'm bad
Earlier
at
than
that.
that.
60s and 70s.
Right. You get my point.
Yeah, no,
No, you're right.
absolutely. It makes it easy. It's easy to display an audience when all you have to do is talk about all you have to do is post a fake video from somebody at the border and say this illegal uh, immigrant killed this girl.
Right.
I mean, everybody understands that. But the second that you say, Kamala Harris has proposed, unrealized gain tax, then you completely lose all of that
Yeah, but
audience
that's
because
serious
everybody's
as
like, what?
fuck. Yeah,
What does
but
that
that's
mean?
serious,
Yeah.
man.
Oh,
Like
I
that's
know.
some
I
serious
know.
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
also the conservatives have kind of lost their way because Trump was such a big
Yes.
spender. Um, and a lot of that was with the was with COVID and was with the stimulus checks and the PPP money. Um, but then now we've gotten to the point where both sides just spend money. you know, One side spends money, the other side spends money to get rid of the stuff. It's just everybody's spending money.
We have a
Yeah.
huge debt.
And they're not
Yeah,
going to
have you all
stop spending
seen?
money. That's what's
Mhm.
that's what's the scary part is that, at some point, like, because we have a fiat currency, like no other fiat currency in any time period has ever lasted, right? All of them have failed because it doesn't work if when you create a money supply out of nothing, like, which is basically what the Federal Reserve is. Um, so like, and then you keep constantly printing more and more money, adding more and more money to the supply, spending more and more money, racking up more and more debt, and then none of that money is ever going to get paid back. Instead, all you do is just keep printing more money. And so like the problem is at some point, you know, these other countries are going to start realizing this, and then they're going to be like, well, we don't want to be on your dollar. Like, this dollar is completely worthless. Like, we have our own currency, and that's why things like Bitcoin have become so popular and so successful. Like, a decentralized currency of that type is something that people are looking for. Like, and especially in other countries, they don't want to rely on the dollar anymore.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, that's why there's
and
a lot of drama over BRICS, right? Because the
Mhm.
US is
yep,
trying to back Bitcoin over that. They're trying to shut that shit down because that could impact
Can
the
you
world economy,
imagine?
right?
Can you imagine if, say, like World War II started right now? Like, how much money would we spend? Like, that's a serious question I have. Like, say a world war began. Let's say World War II. We actually had to send troops and weapons around the world. I mean, how much would that add to the debt? I mean, would that be like a? Because back then it was probably it's probably nothing. But I mean, would that be a $20 trillion thing?
it
At
probably
least.
be somewhat close to that. I
Yeah.
mean, if you look at past wars, like, I mean, pretty much every war in history, the country, regardless of who wins or loses, ends up in debt, and then the
Hmm.
loser just has to pay the debt of the winner.
Yeah.
Basically, that's what happens in every war, and so the loser just gets stuck with the debt. And
Yep.
so you're just adding on debt after debt after debt after debt after debt. And so it's nothing really changes. All you're doing is just transferring debt from one country to the other. and like who gets all that money? The banks.
So it costed us about 40% of our GDP at the time, um,
Damn.
which
Damn, what's
is
our
our GDP
GDP
right
right
now
now?
is $25 trillion. So it'd be 10 million at least, or 10
Well, I
trillion. I
mean,
mean,
think about hypothetically though, like in the next couple years, if we're in a wartime economy, is that GDP going to boost up to 50 trillion? You know what I mean? Double in
yeah.
size because we're producing these massive fucking airplanes and nuclear weapons to threaten everybody and subsonic missiles, you know, whatever the latest technology is, right? And like, we're going to pump in a fuck ton of money to Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin and all those, you know,
Uh,
independent contractors. And that's going to stimulate. So, like, I don't know. I think your 20 trillion could be a realistic number is all I'm trying to say.
Now, a war like that wouldn't take as long though. That's
Sure.
that's something that is the scary part. The scary
It
part
could
is that it
it could
wouldn't take as
literally be
long.
done in like 3 days.
It could
Yeah.
be done in 3 days exactly. Yeah. I mean, we can launch a nuke off a sub. I mean, that's frightening that we have
Yeah,
subs
dude.
across the country that can launch a nuke off of them.
Yeah, I think about that shit all the time. I'm like, what if 10,000 years ago humans achieved technology and just blew each other up? And then there was an uncontacted tribe in the Amazon rainforest that eventually migrated to different, you know, the other land. They created a culture and a society, and boom, it blossomed from something like that. Because theoretically, right, if we were to get nukes dropped on us, people, you know, humankind would survive and we'd
Hmm.
flourish, you know, eventually after, you know, nuclear waste goes away, which I don't know the half life of all that, you know, fun stuff. But over generations, I bet you it would spread to other continents and everything again. There are people currently right now. We're talking via video on a podcast over the internet, and there's people that are living uncontacted, you know, and they have
Hmm.
their whole lives and fucking hunt all their food and grow food and are happy every day and have regular amount of endorphins and receive sunlight. You know, they have all these natural chemicals. It's wild, man. Their bodies flourish off of that, but they also die to infections and parasites and shit
Hmm.
that they don't have modern medicine for. So it's like, is it better? Maybe in some
It's a
aspects.
trade-off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but they also like part of it is that if you've lived in an area that long, you've kind of adapted to the environment around
that
you. So
too.
then you don't develop those diseases. Whereas then like other people who try to come in, they're the ones that get those diseases. Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
Have you
like
all heard that? Like, have you all heard that if you were to somehow, like right now, just transport back to like the 1400s, the second that you like touched a human being, you would basically die like immediately. Just because the bacteria is completely different. Like
Yeah.
if one of us transported back to the 1400s, we could kill the world population. Um, just with it, just how with how bacteria is just evolved and everything. It's just crazy
Yeah.
to me.
Damn.
that's crazy.
Damn. It always makes me think of that whenever we talk about the microbiome and gut biome and shit. I don't know if you guys
Hmm.
have seen the South Park episode where they try to steal Tom Brady's poop and inject it into
No,
themselves.
I've never seen.
I have seen Ted. You've seen Ted too, when they try to
I
break
haven't.
in his house and
Yes,
Oh
yes,
steal
yes.
yeah,
him because because they have a sperm donor. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, that shit's so funny, man. It's like there really are people that are more genetically um maybe not affluent's a good word, but like genetically enhanced, you know, above, you know, superior, I guess is the best
Hmm.
phrase, you know, or word for that. There are people, I mean, it's just a fact. Think about sports. All those motherfuckers that play more specifically basketball or like swimming, I think is the easiest to explain,
Yeah.
you know, in body type, super broad shoulders, huge wingspan, you know, long, powerful legs. They're just built for that sport, which is crazy to me without, you know, genetically modifying, which we will be able to do in the near future here. I think they just started human trials with CRISPR, but it's crazy to me that people, you know, are born genetically with those gifts and find their ways into those sports.
Yeah, it's like that with your hands. Like if you have a certain amount of hand size, I mean, you just literally will not be a quarterback ever in your life.
Nah, dude,
I
Kenny
mean,
Pickett, bro. Kenny Pickett.
where's he now
Pittsburgh.
though?
He's back up to Jalen Hurts.
Exactly.
Hey,
Yeah,
come on, man.
exactly.
Come on, man. We got Justin Fields for a 6th round pick and Russell Wilson for $1 million, and he got to stand on the sidelines, suited up, and watch us
Exactly.
beat his
And
team
both
last
of
year.
them are better quarterbacks than Kenny Pickett.
Hey, that's all right. You can bust every once in a while. You're never gonna win when you have the fucking 20th pick every year because you go 9-8 or 10 and
It's
7.
true.
That's the only
It's true.
issue. I know
The
we
only
bounced through a
reason
bunch of
why
Super Bowls,
you're
but
actually 9-8 and 10-7 is because of TJ Watt. Like that's the only reason why
dude,
y'all have that, that
dude,
record.
that call week 1 against Atlanta where they thought he jumped the line. I don't know if you
Oh
saw the
yeah.
replay. Dude, that was perfectly timed. I don't know if it could have been any better. I feel like he literally was about to break the plane as the center snapped the ball. It was fucking insane. Oh my god, he's just so talented, man.
Also,
Should
they're not supposed to call like bang bang plays like that because usually it's like the defensive end is anticipating, and so like unless the defensive end is like a full step ahead or like has their head in front, like if
right.
they're just starting to like push off at that point and they haven't snapped, like he's still behind the line. I feel like they called it because they like he had started to move.
They called it because he got to the quarterback before their play even started. He
Right,
didn't he
right,
didn't
but,
he
like,
didn't go early.
he anticipated so quickly, he, like, started to move before yeah,
Yeah.
before the ball was even snapped, and it was
Yeah.
just like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was listening to Pat McAfee's show today, and they were talking about the 2 high safeties in the backfield and how
Yes.
that's fucking everything up. It's super interesting because I think since like 2002 or maybe 2007, this is like the least amount of passing yards and passing
Hmm.
touchdowns we've had,
Yeah,
in the past
quarterbacks are
20 years of
struggling
football.
big time. Yeah, yeah. The two high safety was Mel Kiper the one I was talking about it. He said that
Yes.
they should ban two high safeties because the defenses are just almost impossible to stop now. I mean, offenses are struggling big time.
Figure it out, man. You guys did 10 years ago. You know what I
Well,
mean?
it's
Like,
yeah. I mean, they'll figure it out. The main thing is that, like, it takes away the deep ball, which is kind of like, I don't know, like, that's kind of like the highlights of games are like deep
Hmm.
passes, long runs, things like that. And when you play more conservatively as a defense, like you definitely take that away. I mean, if you look back at the Super Bowl last year, and San Francisco played two high safeties the whole game pretty much. And then they had just everyone else. They basically just or no, they didn't play two high safeties. They like had everyone up close and forced KC deep because they couldn't throw deep.
that's right.
And then they played two high safeties late in the game and played back, and Kansas City just shred them up. And so
Yeah.
that's really what you have to do is like that used to be a lot more of a component of offenses was like short inner crossing routes and stuff like that. And because of collisions and concussions, like they didn't run as many of those routes anymore. But
Yeah.
now because the safeties are higher up, those underneath routes are like more cleared up.
Yeah,
So
and now it's all these like pre-snap motions, and that's what the offense is doing.
yeah.
But I'm in favor of banning nothing. I think that those guys should go out there, and I mean, I'm honestly not even that opposed to them taking steroids. I mean, let's just see what happens. Let's get everybody out there. Let's get the biggest guys in the world, and let's just see what happens. You know what I
Dude,
mean? I
have you
don't think we
guys
should ban anything as long as nobody's getting like seriously hurt. I do think the NFL should be careful with the concussions.
I have
Because
Yeah,
something for
I
you.
don't necessarily
I have
agree
something
with
for you.
the steroids. I might stay
yeah,
away
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
because like
That's yeah,
I think you were more exaggerating there, but yeah,
yeah,
I get what you're saying. Like, um, I just think I kind of agree with you. I think that like they shouldn't change the rules too much from where they are, and I
yeah.
think
No, they should let it
part of the
evolve on its
issue
own.
is that they made it so offense friendly. And so, like, when you do that, when you don't allow defenses or cornerbacks to press and touch the receiver as much, you don't allow for as much contact on the quarterback, you don't allow for like a lot of these things, like players can't play. It's hard for a defensive player to go like 100% on every play because they're always thinking about like, well, if I hit this player wrong, I might get a 15-yard penalty, or if I do this, or if I do that, where it's like everyone there agreed to play football. They know what the sport is. They know what their body goes through when they play it. Like they've accepted this. So like let the players play is my kind of point on it. Now obviously you don't want like head hunting and things like that,
Yeah.
but I think for the most part, like part of the reason why the two eye safeties has become a thing is because like they've changed the rules so much for the offense. The defense is like, all right, fine. We're just gonna stay back and then we'll wait till you get to the red zone. And it makes it much harder because like there's a lot less space in the red zone. And so like a lot of teams have been having success moving the ball down the field, but then like when they get them into the red zone, they've had to settle for field goals a lot.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, Steelers first week, 6 field goals. Last week, 2 field goals or 3 field goals and a touchdown. I wanted to bounce back to Dylan's point about the steroids. I think there's a large misconception when it comes to that subject surrounding sports specifically. With the new scientific advancements and achievements that we've made, there's a lot of new light being shed on stuff like peptides that I think are extremely helpful to athletes, more specifically BPC 157, which is a muscle tissue regeneration peptide. So it helps athletes recover safer, faster, and with less effort. The only issues with stuff like this, it's illegal under U.S. administration, so you have to go elsewhere to get these peptides, which then in turn causes that to be dangerous. You don't know who's tainting the medicine, but there's a lot of science that I think we could be applying. Maybe not like anabolic steroids, although anabolic steroids are actually less harmful to our bodies than we previously thought. There's actually new, clinical studies and reports on that type of stuff. I won't go into how so or how much. People can confirm that for themselves. I'm not a doctor, so I can't, I don't want to explain that to you and get too in depth. But I wanted to. I don't know if I talked to Graham about this or you, Dylan, but there's something called the Enhanced Games that are happening at the end of 2025, and it's privately funded, and they've got TV packages already, and they're offering athletes $1 million if they can break a world record, and they're allowed to take whatever substance they would like as long as they're physically healthy the day of the event. There'll be EKGs, they'll have MRIs and other types of stuff set up, weeks leading up to the event, and they'll have EKGs and constant heart monitors and blood pressure monitors on the people. You'll be able to see their what is it their statistics almost, right? Like their blood oxygen levels and all kinds of crazy shit. But it's athletics, which is like track and field. They have swimming, gymnastics, combat, which is hand-to-hand combat, lots of different fighting. I think they're going to have judo, boxing, and like mixed martial arts, and then strength, which is powerlifting. So yeah, they're offering athletes $1 million to beat world records, and then they'll pay them out accordingly. Or I think they actually give them contractual value or contracts over the course of X amount of years or whatever. So their whole goal is to pay out these athletes because they're getting a major TV package or whatever. So it's supposed to be more beneficial to the athletes. It's supposed to be safer because according to their website, 44% of professional athletes are already using performance enhancing drugs in some meaner method. So might as well be safe about it. Teach them to administer it correctly, do it under the supervision of a healthcare professional, right? Like a lot of these guys are already doing this shit. So why not make it safe and bring doctors along to make sure they're doing the right things? That's all.
I'd love to see that. I'd love to see how fast a human being can go.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
Like, I mean, I've seen before that like the top 10 100-meter times of all time are all, or 9 of them are all using performance enhancing drugs except for Usain Bolt. Like
Yep.
I'd love to see just how strong a human being can get, or just how fast a human being can get. Obviously you want to be safe about it, but that's pretty cool. I'd never heard that before.
My
Yeah.
money's on Jokic for shortest vertical.
Dude, He was so much fun to see play in
He's
person. I wish
definitely
he
not
woulda came
taking
out to
any
Denver.
performance
Yeah.
enhancers, that's for sure.
Dude, I wish you woulda came out to Denver when I was there, Graham. He is one of the I've only been to probably 10 basketball games. He's easily the coolest person I've ever seen play. I mean, I love his play style, dude. Big gangly dude that can pass. Oh, man. Love that shit.
He's just so skilled. Like
Yes.
he doesn't look like a basketball player. I mean, that's kind of what I love about it because it's like basketball players have that certain look about him, and like he doesn't have that look, but he just walks on the floor and just dominates
Every game,
every
he
game.
balls out. That's so fun too. Like, he's always in. He's always on, right? He's always 100%. I don't know, you don't get that with a lot of players anymore, I don't think.
He's like always even keel, consistent, like never really has an off night.
I did want to make a point real quick, going back to the football thing. We can move
Yeah.
on after this, but I think what's so cool about the NFL is that, and the NBA as well, just these, these major sports leagues, is that there are so many young people who are just dying to get a shot, and so there's so much innovation going on that we don't get to see, from the fan perspective. But I guarantee you, there's so many kids out there right now in their 20s and 30s that are trying to figure out how to stop the too high safety. And then the second that one of those kids get into a position of, play calling,
Yeah.
the same thing. I mean, that's what happened with Sean McVay and all of them, and that's why he has his coaching tree and everything like that. But that's what's so cool about the NFL is that it's like a free market. It's just things will balance out eventually. Offense will go for years where it's offense heavy, and then defense will go for years where it's defense heavy. And as long as the NFL stays out of it, and creates a free market, you could say, things will balance and things will evolve, and that's why I think it's so cool for the fan.
Yeah, I love that for the fan experience. I guess question with you guys in terms of the NFL hands off. What do you think about them offering what is it, equity in the teams to private equity firms? Is that what it was?
I did just see that. Yeah. It's gonna get interesting. That's for sure.
Well, my question is like, okay, so are these like uh private equity firms now gonna like have control of the NFL? Because right now, I mean, the owners have control. Yeah, they have the commissioner and they have like people that work for the NFL, but the owners are really the ones that run the NFL. So
Uh,
like if you're gonna have other like corporations come in where it's not just like a individual owner that kind of represents the team, which is like how it is now. I mean, maybe they're just buying up like small
Yeah, I don't think they're
percentages.
going to give up the
Okay.
majority.
Yeah.
hold on. I've
What I
got
know,
a
I don't think there's going to be an entire team held by private equity. I think it's
I mean, if if they did that with the Panthers, I wouldn't necessarily complain, but
going to the Google Docs, I put in a chart in there from a website that I found, and it shows the private equity investment allowance in the NBA, MLB, NHL, MLS, and WSL and the NFL. So for the NBA, MLB, NHL, MLS, and NWSL, the maximum cumulative private equity investment stake allowed per team is 30%. Now, the maximum amount a single private equity investor can own per team, NBA is 20%, MLB is 15%, and then NHL, MLS, and WSL are all 20%, and the NFL is also 10%. And then in the NBA, maximum number of teams a private equity investor can invest in, 5 for the NBA, unlimited for the MLB. Can we talk about how insane that is?
that's
So,
yeah.
crazy.
so a private equity firm can invest in all 30 teams in the MLB?
Now, I will say this. I don't think this is going to be that big of a deal. I mean, these teams aren't worth that much at the end of the day. Um, these teams don't even come close to like
Sure.
a big company. Like how much is the how much is the Cowboys worth? I mean, that's the biggest one.
So there's
Um,
controversy surrounding that number. It's right around 10 billion, I think it was valuated at, or
mhm.
something like that. But that's all projections. None of that's real
Yeah,
numbers
yeah,
because a
yeah,
team like that has not been sold. There's no historical data to pull on
yeah,
something like that in the last
yeah.
5 years, right? So it's like
And
all conjecture.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
and at
and
the end of
I
the day,
think
10 billion isn't crazy for a private equity firm. I mean, a lot of these firms are operating on billions themselves. So,
right. I also think like a lot of these teams are becoming overinflated in price. Like these private equity firms are buying up and like then the price goes up and it starts to overinflate. And part of that is because of like the massive TV deals and contracts. Like as the TV deals have gone up, so have the salary caps and not salary cap for MLB. They don't have one, but like, the ability to spend has increased because now you have this massive amount of
Yep.
money that you're getting, not just from like ticket sales and merchandise sales, but like
Right.
the TV deal is what's making you the most money. And
Yep.
it's like the same way for college football too. We could talk about that as well. Like
Yep.
if you want to talk about the biggest thing that's affecting like professional and college sports, it's TV rights deals. Like
Media.
that's what drives pretty much everything.
yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, the CBS had the SEC football for years, uh, and that's all gone now. Yeah, the
Yeah.
TV rights, but you can't tell me. I just don't think the Dallas Cowboys are selling for $10 billion if it went for sale
No.
tomorrow.
No.
There's no way. If they charge $10 billion, it's going to be for sale for a long time. I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And to Graham's point as well, like I think areas with higher football concentration, places like Alabama or Georgia are going to draw in more of that TV package money. SEC, right? Those guys are making, you know, I guess the phrase I was trying to use is like the ACC TV package is pennies to a dollar when it comes to like an SEC package. And
Hmm.
those schools not only are able to invest in their programs or like, say for the NFL, they might be able to invest, even though salary cap goes up and they can pay players a little bit extra money, they get an extra $30 million to upgrade their facilities, put new ice baths in the locker rooms, upgrade the showers, have infrared saunas, all this stuff that we don't see going on behind the scenes has upgraded. I think there is a player survey that comes out every year and it goes through and all the individuals rank their cleanliness, their cohesiveness, like their quality of facilities when it comes to
Yeah.
food, locker room,
I
training
think
rooms,
they
like wide
just
receiver
started
rooms. They have
doing
like
that a couple years ago.
I find
Yeah, the
that super
Chiefs have an
interesting.
F on their um what's it called? Like the rehab. Um, yeah, they have an F. And did you all see that there was a player that got hurt at Arrowhead that complained about how the staff treated him after he got hurt and said no wonder that they got an F.
Really? I hope it
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah,
Isaiah Pacheco. I didn't draft him in any leagues this year, but they said he was a bone bruise or something, and some ankle injury.
yeah. I think he's gonna be okay though.
But he got put on IR, so he's gonna be out for at least 4 weeks.
Yeah. But Joe Mixon hasn't, which was wild. Can we talk about the hip drop tackle? If you guys are willing to talk about that a little bit, what do you think on that? They ban all this other shit, and then it happens right in front of them on national television, and they don't throw a flag. Like, how
Yeah.
does that look? When they throw a flag on all this other stupid shit, all these illegal
Yeah.
formations and
I
holds.
mean, I don't know, because it's kind of a hard thing. Like you're grabbing onto a player and the player's trying to get away from you. And so you're like falling down. And so that's pretty much the only place you can grab is the hips at that point. I mean, I get it because like if you want to talk about you can end your career with an injury like that. Like Bo Jackson, his career ended after he got a hip drop tackle. And I don't know if there's any other like that's the one example I can think of at least of a player that like lost their career because of it. But I don't know how you can really avoid it as a defender. That's more of my thing. Because otherwise, it's like, okay, do you just let go and let him go free? It's like, no, you got to grab some part of him. You got to
Yeah.
like hold on somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, my thing with all that is it's a tough spot because obviously the NFL Like if you're in the NFL shoes, you don't want something to get overpowered that can hurt people, you know. But at the same time, though, say it does become an actual real problem, which maybe now it is. Like I said, everything will evolve. You know, in 3 or 4 years, they'll figure it out. The sucky part, though, is that that's 3 or 4 years of people getting hurt.
Yep.
You know, and that's what's happened all the time. You know, the quarterbacks got hurt a lot for 3 or 4 years, and then they changed things. So the teams will figure it out. Now with the hip drop tackle though, it's one of those things that's like, can we figure it out? You know, like as the defensive side of the ball, can be figured out. There's no other way to tackle somebody. And then from the offensive player point of view, like how can you stop somebody from doing that? But at the same time though, these guys are so good. These guys are so good with this stuff that
Yeah.
I think that they'll figure it out.
Dude, and we see this in slow motion on national television. Can you imagine running full speed against a dude that's 6'3", 235 pounds of pure muscle, you know, and a linebacker that's 6'4", 275, just trying to break your
Yep.
ankle. You know what I mean? Like they're not trying to slow up. And that's the beauty in new age football, in my opinion. Like the fact that these guys can actively avoid some of these penalties just blows my mind. You know how
Yeah.
hard that shit must be. Like I can't even comprehend that, to be running at full speed and to pull up, you know, because a guy let go of the football 0.4 seconds before your arm hit his arm and you would have been called for X, Y, and Z. Like that's crazy to me how athletes and athletics, not only football, like there's a lot of other examples of that in other sports too, you know, have adapted over the last, you know,
Well,
at least 30
did
years.
you all see? Did you all see that Jamar Chase got his contract insured?
No, really?
I think that's one of the first. Yeah, I think that's one of the first cases I've seen of a player getting their contract insured. But yeah, he got like a. Let me look up. I'm sure you can find it faster than I can.
Yeah, $50 million
But
insurance
yeah, he got
policy.
$50 million insurance policy on his contract because if he gets hurt, then that'll be pretty good. But what do you all think about that? Do you think that could be something that could kind of stop this worry about a career-ending injury?
Well, shit, man, there's a line for everything on every sports book. You can bet against everything. Why shouldn't an insurance company
Right.
put a policy on something like that? I think it speaks largely to the Tua situation as well. Like, you
Yeah,
know, he should have got his contract insured or something like that, because if he's medically unable to play, he loses out on like 60% of that contract money or something like
Right.
yeah,
that. So,
You know where I think it's going to become the biggest though is in running backs.
yes.
I
yeah.
think
'Cause
I
their
think
careers
it,
are so short
for
anyway.
running backs, like once you get that second contract, like you need to get it insured because
Yeah,
there's a countless number of running backs that they get injured after they get their big contract, and then another running back gets brought in, and then like they end up getting released by the team. Like that happened with Todd Gurley, it happened with Dalvin Cook, happened with Zeke, even though he's now back with the Cowboys. Like it happens a lot with like running backs that because like generally your best years as a running back are earlier in your career.
Yep.
So like you're trying to get that money as quickly as possible and you want to keep it. So I feel like for
yeah,
running backs, it's definitely going to be a big thing to like in the future. Although because it's and maybe this year it'll change things, like it's becoming a more valued position. I think for sure, like
Yes.
I think you would have said when Jahmyr Gibbs was drafted by the Lions, you would have said that doesn't make any sense. Why are they drafting a running back when they just have David Montgomery and they got rid of DeAndre Swift? But I mean, you see, like, there's a lot of teams that are now going to more of a two running back
Yep. Pass
set
catching. Yeah.
with one that's more of just straight run, straight runner, and then one that's more of the pass catching kind of, can go out and line up as a receiver type player. And I think that's really like we've seen it in the past, but I feel like it's becoming more of the model of doing things. And because of that, it's kind of limited running back contracts.
Hmm.
Um,
yeah. That's what I was gonna
so
say. I think You said something about running backs becoming more important, but I actually disagree with that. I think a lot of the problems with the running backs is that I think the skill gap amongst running backs is the least among any position. I mean, how many times does it happen where the star running back has gotten hurt and the backup running back is just fine? You know, I
Yeah.
think so much of the running back has to do with the offensive line and the play caller. I don't really think you can tell me that, a couple years ago, the difference between Dalvin Cook and Madison was that much. And Dalvin Cook was thought of to be a top 5 running back in the league, 4 or 5 years ago. But then he got hurt and Madison came in, and next thing you know, he's a running back 1 on everybody's fantasy team. It's like
Right. And now
so
Dalvin
much
Cook's
of it
out of
has
the
to
league.
do, yeah, so exactly.
Yeah.
So much of it has to do with the play call and the offensive line. And you can be the 50th best running back in the league, on whatever metrics there are, and they're going to do fine behind a good offensive line. So I think that's the problem with running backs is that they're important. Yes, the position's important. You and your skills individually really aren't that important because there's not really that many running backs that can do anything that another one can't. You know what I mean?
I kind of agree. No, I was meaning more important in terms of like than it used to be, like maybe 5 years ago when passing kind of was
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
over and
Dominating.
quarterbacks were passing for 5,000 yards. Like, I think there was one year where there were like 5 quarterbacks that passed for 5,000 yards or something crazy like
Yeah. It
that.
was like the Drew
And
Brees and Stafford year.
yeah,
Big Ben was part of that. Everybody forgets about
Yeah.
him, man.
yeah,
I was just gonna say, I was gonna chip in real quick. You're right. Running backs are going to be more important in the scheme, but I would not want to be a running back in with those contracts. I think running back contracts are going to go way down, way down. I don't think anybody. I mean, nowadays, like Saquon had a hard time even getting a job. I mean, obviously he's going to have a job, but like, it's just who really wants to just change out the running back for another one and pay more money?
Too much.
It's like,
Yeah.
are you really gonna get that much more uh, effectiveness out of
right,
another running back than your current one? I mean, Pacheco was drafted in the 7th round, and he's doing totally fine. He's basically
right,
maximizing what you can do on that team, you know? And a lot of it has to do with, this running back is so good because he's, a lot of it's fantasy dependent too. We kind of think in our heads about like, oh, the guys with the more stats are the better running backs.
Yep.
But Pacheco's is at his ceiling of what you can do on that team. Yeah, he's not going for 120 yards every week, but he's still a good running back. There are some teams that just have a big spot available for running back in terms of yardage because their quarterback sucks or their quarterback wants to throw checkdowns. Um, so we kind of think of those running backs as being better. But the second that those running backs go on the market, they can't be expected to get a $30 million contract because,
There's nothing on the market for him. Too much
yeah,
volatility, too much
yep,
liability. I can speak on this a little bit as a Pittsburgh fan. We've had Najee. We drafted him, right? We've had him for 4 years. His rookie contract ends after this season. We have not signed him to, I guess, a 6th year because we brought his extension out to 5 years, whatever we paid him.
yeah,
But he's negotiating a new deal. We have Jalen Warren. I'm confident that we're going to re-sign Najee. I think, part of our organizational success has been sticking with guys that fit the locker room well and are part of that culture as a team. But I don't think we're going to overpay for him at all. I think we're going to underpay him. I'm doing air quotes for those people just listening. I guess we don't have video anymore for now. They're going to pay him a low contract in today, by today's standards, today's value, but that'll even out. I think you're right. I think it'll move back down. And even, he's incredibly important to our scheme. He's been our entire scheme in the last 44 seasons because we haven't had that sufficient quarterback play. So to Graham's point earlier, we have the pass catching back in Jalen Warren and the run it up the gut big dude in Najee Harris. We're moving towards something like that. And we've seen success as shitty as our offense is and our line has improved over the last couple of years. It's small ball, man. That's fun to watch, not
but
fun to watch. I'm always anxious.
the problem though is that Najee's obviously a good guy, so I don't know if that's going to happen. But then what happens when Najee feels disrespected? That
Sure.
happened last year. I don't remember who it was. Maybe one of you remember. But Najee's going to feel disrespected when he gets a 3-year, $15 million offer. He's going to want 10 a year. And then he goes to another team, and it's just going to be a huge mess. remember who that was? There was a running back that felt disrespected by the offer.
Was it? Trying to think. It wasn't Saquon. I mean, Saquon Saquon was gonna take the Giants offer, and then they turned him down, right, or something like that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think it was. I think it was Zeke. Yeah, I
Was he
can't remember.
trying to like
Anyways, though.
re-sign with the Patriots or?
Yeah, I don't remember. Anyways, though, but it's going to become a problem. I think. I think that these running backs, because they're such big stars, like like an offensive lineman is obviously more important. Is one of the most important positions to a team, but they're not stars. All those top running backs are stars, and so they want to get paid like stars. The problem though is that they're just not worth star money to a team. So
Yep.
if I tomorrow wake up in a new body that allows me to be an NFL player, I do not want to be a running back.
Yep.
We'll just say that.
At the end of the day, it's a business. It's a business, bro. The owner's trying to make money. If he's not going to get his return on investment from a guy that's likely to get hurt because he's used a lot, he's not going to want to pay him out quite as much as, star players like quarterbacks who are protected more, receivers who make the big, flashy plays, whatever, and those guys really do excel at their positions. But we talked about something that I really want to bring more emphasis on, and that's the offensive line and how important that position is. And that never gets any credit, man. Never. They
Mm-hmm.
never get
Yep.
shit, man. Never.
Yep.
They should be considered for offensive player of the year, as far as I'm concerned,
Yep.
even MVP status, right? Like these guys may change the game more than anybody else, except, with the exception of the quarterback, obviously, because he has the ball in his hand every single play.
I
Yeah.
agree.
I mean, Tristan.
I think especially the tackles,
Yeah.
tackles, and then the center. I mean, guards are important too, but really, it's the tackles and the center are, if. And some would say like the center is the least important position on the line, but honestly, I think it's probably third behind left tackle and right tackle, just because it's, you're the one that's snapping the ball, kind of directing traffic on the line, the center of everything. So I feel like you're, to your point, Tyler, I think, the O line doesn't get enough respect, but I do think in terms of like, if we're talking about job security, I think, if I were to go to the NFL and you say, okay, you're going to play 10 years, you're going to be solid, make a couple all pro teams, make a couple $1 million. Like, I'd be fine with playing O line. Like, I feel like it's a very safe position once you solidify yourself in that position.
Yeah.
You can never be like the best, but as long as you're like decent, and most are, especially in the run game, because that's how you really get to the NFL as a lineman is through run blocking, not really pass blocking. And then you kind of develop pass blocking later.
Dude,
But
you know what I haven't really thought about, but what you were saying kind of makes me expand my current thought. The media. You wouldn't have to deal with shit as an offensive lineman. You could be the best
Mm-hmm.
offensive lineman in the league, get paid a bunch of money, and never have to talk to reporters other than, your local guys and, small time. That would be so gas.
you
That would
know
be
how
awesome.
I get it. Like, he was on a losing team his entire career, but like Joe Thomas had it pretty good. I mean, like, you're Pro Bowl lineman for 10 straight years. Like, he's probably making good money. I don't know if he should be a Hall of Famer. I don't know if he'll ever get in the Hall of Fame just because he never won anything. But I mean, yeah, I mean, he was on a shitty team, but like, just the idea of that sort of career, like, I don't know, maybe because I'm a little bit more like, don't like being in the spotlight as much, but I would prefer, if I were in the NFL, like, that would be a pretty sick career.
Yes. I
Yeah.
agree.
The spotlight, I think, gives these guys kind of the wrong idea of how much they're worth. Like
Yeah.
Jamar Chase is all upset about, you know, about his contract or whatever, and it's like, you know, these guys think that they're better than they are because they have 5 million followers on Instagram,
Right.
and they're celebrities, and um
It's
like
not your worth
Tristan
off
Tristan
the field,
Wirfs.
it's your worth on
Yeah,
the field.
Yeah. Tristan Wirfs, the tackle for the Buccaneers. I mean, he got paid. I'm looking at this right now. 5 years, $140 million. I mean, that's what 28 a year, and Christian McCaffrey's making 16. So I mean, can you imagine being Christian McCaffrey, right? You got 5 million followers on Instagram. You're getting all these tweets about fantasy. You're this big star everywhere you go, and you're getting paid less than the fat guy in front of you. I mean, it's gonna come, and I don't know if it's gonna be this offseason or the offseason after that. But it's gonna come where you're gonna see this huge outrage of running backs saying that they're not paid enough, and then they're gonna talk about giving guaranteed contracts and whatever. It's gonna be a whole mess.
I mean, they're paying the positions like they're worth, because it really, in reality, I mean, the left tackle is the second most important position on the field.
Agreed.
So, offense or defense, like, that, and I think most good general managers understand that. And so, like, your number one goal obviously is to get a quarterback, but then your second goal is to get two tackles to protect that quarterback. Like, and if you don't do that, then you're failing the quarterback. And that's, I think, what happens to a lot of rookie quarterbacks and young quarterbacks is they end up with really poor offensive lines, and they don't have offensive lines that can protect them. So they're never in positions where they can, like, actually scan the field, go through their progressions, and, like, develop as a quarterback, because they're always having to, like, either go with their first read or just run, just get out of there because they're going to get sacked.
Yep. Bunch of perfect examples of that over the last couple of years, and I think that's a huge mistake that GMs and coaches are making, are putting these young guys, these first year rookie quarterbacks, and thrusting them into the spotlight in this situation. I always thought it was better in the old days, right? You draft a guy, you let him sit behind your starting quarterback for 3 years. And then, he comes out, he understands the full extent of the offense. He trusts those guys in the locker room to protect him, right? He's going to carry out his progressions and the plays like they're drawn up. I mean, there's totally, Bryce Young, Graham, as a Panthers fan, there's got to be no cohesiveness in that locker room. Nobody trusts each other. They don't want to play for each other. They don't want to play to win. Like, what do you do in a failing team like that? It's just like everything else, right? Teamwork, communication, like,
Right.
that's the beauty of sports as well. Like, you learn so many of those soft skills, growing up in those atmospheres that you never would have elsewhere. And it's really camaraderie, man. Like, a bunch of grown ass dudes, stanky dudes in a locker room, coming together to achieve one common goal. As silly as that sounds, right? That's athletics, that's sports. And, like, if you don't have people that can trust one another when they're going into battle, so to speak, you're never going to win a game. That's why you see the most successful teams have the best locker room, not aesthetic, but, like, they're all buddies, right? They're enjoying playing the game
Mm-hmm.
together. They're not afraid to go out and get hurt for somebody else so then their team can succeed. And that's how you create a winning culture. And we don't see that anymore. Well, that's not true in some teams, but, like, it's a lost art in terms of the quarterback progression and, drafting those guys. And I think that corresponds directly with today's society, right? We want that instant gratification. We want things to succeed immediately. We see that in the pharmaceutical
Right.
companies. We see that on television with sports teams, ads, phones, new this, new that, right? Like, we need shit now. That's the whole thing. And, like, that ruins us as people, right? To totally receive shit without working towards it. I think that ultimately defeats the purpose of having goals and, achieving them and working hard, right? Like, for all these people that aren't type 1 or type 2 diabetics that actually need GLP-1 drugs, that are just taking Ozempic, to lose weight. Like, what the fuck? I don't know. Like, that's cool if you want to do that. No hate to anybody that's doing that as well. But, like, I don't know, man. You can achieve the same results through hard work, diet, and exercise, right? And, like, it's way more gratifying that way, in my opinion. And it helps us helps us reach other aspects or areas of our lives because we're ingrained into that. We just experience that the entire journey instead of immediately achieving the cycle, I guess is a good way to explain it. I don't know. That was long
Yeah.
winded and I kind of got off topic, but I don't know.
No,
You're
Sports,
good. Everything,
teamwork.
you're good. Went from
absolutely
NFL to
everything is.
Ozempic.
Yeah.
But no,
I mean,
everything is instant gratification nowadays. I see that a lot with. We can really get off topic here, but obviously I'm a computer science major. And I'm really glad. I tell people all the time, I'm really glad that I got through my freshman year before uh, these generative AI large language models came out. So I'm really glad I got those basics down myself. I can't tell you how many times I've seen classmates of mine that will get a new project and they've just completely forgotten how to even start it. Like they've even just forgotten completely how to set up the file because they're just so used to just getting that instant code down on the paper because all they do is type in the prompt to ChatGPT or something like that. And there's so many kids now who have completely lost the ability to code themselves because it's just instant gratification.
yep.
They get it done for them and they look at it and they go, "Oh yeah, no, I know how that works," and then they move on. Which is a good skill to have, but at the end of the day, you're cheating yourself.
Hey man, it defeats the resourcefulness of a person, right? I'm not saying
Hmm.
that I
Yeah.
didn't, get X quiz or like Y paper from somebody else to review it in college, right? That happened, but I had to source that out. I had to either make connections or find
Hmm.
books in the library, stuff I had to search it out. It just wasn't available to me like it is nowadays. And I think that breaks down the resourcefulness aspect of society. Like, how can we create more things when we have the answer right in front of us? I guess is a good
Hmm.
question to ask.
Yeah, yeah. Like, why even think through this problem when
Right.
something else can do it really quickly for you? And then you rationalize it yourself by saying, "I could do that." You
Right.
know, like I
Exactly.
could write a paper. The words that they're giving me for this essay, I know what those words mean, so therefore I could do this.
Yep.
But you're completely cheating yourself out of the process, which I think hurts a lot more than it helps.
No, I agree because the whole point of like doing something is like once you do it, you feel good about doing it. Like after you've completed that paper or you've done that assignment, you're like, man, that was tough, or like that took longer than I was expected. But you have like a sense of gratification from doing that, and it's like, I think when you create shortcuts for people, people are going to use those shortcuts
Yep.
and like you're saying, kind of cheating themselves out of like sometimes it's better to take the long route. Sometimes it's better to take the hard way instead of the easy way. You could do it the easy way. You could just go in and put it in ChatGPT, but sometimes like, you have to do things that maybe other people, they're doing it that way, but they can do that way. Like,
Yep.
they're only cheating themselves. They're only hurting themselves in the long run because if then they get a job in that field, they're just going to continue to be relying on that ChatGPT. They're never going to have any skills that they develop for themselves. They're just
Uh,
going to have skills that they're reliant upon from like other things.
Yes.
And so it really just limits your ability to like grow and progress in whatever field you're going into.
Agreed.
Um,
don't get me wrong. I
yeah,
think that there's a major skill there, and this is something that I think I do a pretty good job of knowing what's worth your time and what's not. I think I had that
yeah,
skill even back like in elementary school. Like I would, not elementary school, I would try pretty hard and everything then. But like once I got to middle school, I was very good at being able to realize, okay, this is a waste of my time. This is busy work.
Right.
I'm not learning anything doing this. And so I would cheat my way out of it, or I would, read the Spark notes instead of reading the book.
Yep.
Just looking back on, I wish I had just read the book. Um, but I think there are times in your life where you need to realize what's worth your time and what's not. But when it comes to your actual future in a field, I don't think there's any reason that you need to be cheating yourself out of it. I mean, I have a buddy who, 100% is relying on AI to do all his work for him. I don't think he's coded a single line of code himself since like beginning of freshman year, whenever all this stuff came out.
Uh-huh.
And he's intentionally, trying to avoid, jobs where he has to do a coding interview, because he's too scared to do that. And I'm just like, dude, I mean, they say fake it till you make it, but you can't do that for very long.
Yeah.
Eventually,
Yeah.
you have to, you can't fake it anymore. When they say fake it till you make it, that just means fake it until you realize you know what you're doing. But if you
Yeah.
keep faking it
Yeah.
and you
You're never
never
going to learn.
realize what you're doing, then you're never going to make it, because
Yeah.
eventually you have to get to a point where you know what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah. I know. I just read an article the other day. There's actually a pretty good New York Times article out there. I'll have to send it to you all later. But, they always talk about how the computer science field is oversaturated, and, people aren't getting jobs as easy as they were 4 or 5 years ago. And this article basically argued that the reason is because of cheating. They say that student cheating is the highest in this major than it is in any other major, and that the kids are coming out of college and they just aren't as good at the job as they used to be. And if a junior engineer at Facebook is making, $200,000, and the senior engineer is making $700,000, that senior engineer is worth a lot more than 3 times that junior engineer. Um, that they're just so much more efficient at writing code, to the point where they don't even need to hire any junior engineers anymore. And basically, the article's arguing was that it was just this rampant cheating is basically making it obsolete to even have a young coder anymore, because they just don't know how to anymore.
That's
So that
wild.
was something that I read that I was like, okay, I need to watch some YouTube videos. I need to start learning.
It does make sense though. I mean, when you think about it,
Hmm.
right? Like everybody's gonna hate that I bring up another Rogan reference on this podcast, and I've done that 6 dozen times already. But he
Ugh,
talks about all
another
the
one.
yeah, I know, right? He talks about all the time about doing hard things. It makes hard things easier, right? If you put yourself through either physical toll or mental toll, right? When it comes to a serious problem in your life, your relationship, your job, monetary issues, you can approach it much more calmly because you've experienced stress, right? You've been there before in some degree, some shape or form. Um, so yeah, I think that totally makes sense, and that I think solidifies Graham's point from earlier as well. And people have to put themselves through shit to understand stuff. And another tidbit I wanted to say when we are talking about AGI and AI, I think there are applicable situations for that. Like I use it to help
Hmm.
me write more professional emails. I don't ask it to do shit for me, but I want to sound professional when I'm talking to clients or people that I'm working with, right? So I ask it to review my emails, put numbers together, stuff like that. It's not like overly manipulative to where I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I guess is a good way to put it. But yeah, pleasure having you guys. I just wanted to wrap it up today. Very much appreciate you guys spending 2.5 hours with me, at least 2 hours. We were on here chatting for a while beforehand about football. A bunch of football. We're talking about Trump going to the Alabama game this weekend, which should be
Oh
hilarious.
yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be crazy. Well, I love how we transitioned all the way from the debate to just straight back to football.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah, we really wanted to talk about football.
Yeah. Hey
I
man,
think that was
It's
just on
fall.
our minds because
It's
that's what we
fall.
were talking about beforehand.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that and it is September. Come October, we have playoff
Exactly.
baseball, and
Yeah,
then we
Yeah.
have more football, and then the NHL starts. There's so much good
Hmm.
shit to come up, man. So much good
Yeah. Yeah.
television and so much mindless programming for us to watch while the real world unfolds right in front of our eyes. So those of you out
Oh,
there that you're still listening for this long, go get registered to vote. I understand that it may not make as large of an impact as we all think, and there's a lot of issues with the system, and there's a lot of shit going on in the world. But you got to do your due diligence, make a vote. If everybody does it, then we're in good shape. They only say it's a two-party system because nobody votes for the third party. Hey,
yeah, but it doesn't help when the third party drops out.
yeah,
So
yep, yep. Well, hey, this is not a
then
political
you
ad.
only got two parties and you're stuck with them. So
Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe next time around will be better. I'll be 30 years old. I'll be brand new in my 30s. I'll be oh my God, I can't even think about that. Never mind. Maybe we'll edit that out. Oh my God. 4 years from now, dude, I'll be 30 years old. I don't know if my outlook will change as much from like 20 to 30. Well, 20 to 30 is probably a very large change, but 30 to 40 is
Yeah.
probably more mediocre if I had to guess. But we'll see. I'll experience it. I'll live to tell the tale. I'll tell you guys about it when I'm 40. Meet me in 14 years. We'll talk about it. Still have the podcast going. It's like the cut scenes at the end of Rick and Morty. It's Rick and Morty going on adventures. We'll go here forever. It's Rick and Morty. It's Morty and it's Rick, and we're here and we're gonna go on adventures till the end of time for 40 years, for 50 years. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
hey, man, it was a pleasure having you guys on. Thanks for carving out the time for me as always. Hope you enjoyed yourself.
Absolutely. I appreciate
Yeah.
it a lot.
Awesome.
Of course,
Well,
as always.
yeah. Graham's a big part of this podcast. So is Dylan, man. Dylan's been on here a bunch recently, so we'd like to thank them both. Graham helps me out with the editing. I'd like to talk to Dylan about some website and fun stuff, on the internet, as he is a professional in that realm. So everybody out there, appreciate you sticking around for this long. If you're still here, make sure to go follow us on all of our social media platforms. That'll be at Slanted Attic. You can catch us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, wherever you consume your podcasts. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.